I was super blessed to grow up in a family, an extended, like, multi-generational family where it was kind of the lines were blurred between the immediate family and extended family, so I spent as much time with my grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins as I did with my siblings, my parents, and it was just such a blessing as a kid, and so it really grounded and anchored me in, outside of, like, doing what you're called to do in this life, primary value for me is family, and how am I honoring it? And for me, as an entrepreneur and believing in the vehicle of entrepreneurship as a tool to create the best possible life for a family, I've seen it do that, and I've seen it come at the detriment of
Mm,
family too, of marriages, of relationships, of health, and all of that. So it's I'm just been on this quest, Paul, for years now to really work with those family first minded entrepreneurs who want this to be something greater than a compartmentalized life of like, oh, yeah, I really value family over here. And then I grow a business and I'm a founder over here. And instead, how do we integrate the two? How do we make it a gift? Because I grew up in a family, not just extended, but of entrepreneurs. Like my grandparents, aunts, uncles, both my mom and my dad, they all ran their own businesses. So it was such a gift to us as kids. One, to have that flexibility in their lives. They were present for everything. Even though they had to work their butt off at
mm,
odd hours to make up for it, they were there with us. And two, I learned more sitting observing my parents or my grandfather, or my uncles in their businesses than I ever did in school.
mm,
'Cause there's so many life lessons that you can get through how you treat people, communication, your thoughts around money, how you think of yourself, how you show up as a leader, like, all of that stuff was happening in real time. I didn't know it at the time, I'm sitting there coloring at the conference table while my mom's talking to a client, but I was absorbing every last detail. So, I feel like that kinda rooted in me, not necessarily strategically or by choice, and now it really is a central focus to me because I did it wrong for a while.
mm,
You know, I did build the business at the expense of my family while under the guise of doing it for them for the first few years. I did, um, prioritize my goals and my vision without really asking the question, "Well, what's the impact of my goals and my vision when I'm a part of a team, a family, on a mission together? Like, how do we integrate that?" So, everything I do now is a result of having done it wrong and having to, course correct. But yeah, family is definitely central to everything I do.
So, what was that? So, or was there a moment when you were doing it wrong? What was that
Mm.
pivotal? Was it a gradual thing, or was there a pivotal moment where something happened? Or, I mean, what caused you to go, "Oh, I need to do this differently"?
Yeah, I think I'm dense enough, Paul, that I have to get hit by a 2 by 4 smack in the forehead enough times
Yeah,
to really get it, because you ask that question and I have, like, 4 or 5 things pop up into my head, but they're over a span of time. So, like, I
yeah,
get hit with a kinda dose of reality, and then I course correct a little, but then, you fall back into old habits, or you don't really find a way to just truly transform how you're going forward. So the first one that comes to mind, my oldest was young, and we had just broken into, our first million in profit, so we were celebrating. It was a big week for us as a company, and we were also hosting it, like, coincided with we host masterminds, we
mm,
have for about a dozen years, and we were hosting this really big mastermind with about probably 30 very
oh,
successful entrepreneurs coming in, flying into New Hampshire, and we had rented this mega mansion on this lake up in, northern New Hampshire, and it was beautiful, and my mentor was coming out to be there as a guest speaker, but also to celebrate with us. And I remember being, like, so proud to have him there because he was with me when I couldn't figure out how to make my first
mm,
100K. Like, he
mm,
saw me struggle through all of it. So I'm expecting the pat on the back and the celebration and him getting up and kind of recognizing me for all the boxes we had ticked and all we had accomplished. We had just gotten our first Forbes feature, just like a lot of big
mm,
wins that year that we had been pushing for based on my goals. And my mentor pulled me aside when there was a break in the action. He's like, "Hey, can we talk?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he sits across the table from me and he kind of looks nervous, and he's not a nervous guy. And I'm like, what is it that he has to say that he's like uneasy with me? We have such a great relationship. And he just kind of asks me point blank, like, do I have permission to be really honest with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. And he's like, you are drastically underperforming your potential. And it hit me
Because I've just
square
been
in the
impressed
chest.
listening to what you're doing. I'm really
Yes. And
impressed listening.
I'm like, who is this guy?
How
Like,
dare you?
what is he missing? And
Wow.
like the hot-headed Italian in me wanted to just like, yeah, butt him and fight him. But I'm like, man, this guy really loves me. Like, he has loved me well for the last few years and how he's led me. Like, let me sit with this for a minute. So I eked out the question of like, okay, like, what do you mean? Tell me more. And he's like, Liz, you have been so focused on achieving these specific goals, right? The financial goals or the media features. But I'm looking at you and you have completely failed to show up as the person that I know you're capable of being, like the leader that I know you're called to be. And I know that he knew that like family was so central to me because
Mm.
every conversation we'd have, I would talk about, pay lip service to what I'm building and why I'm building it and all the freedom we're going to have as a family and how it's going to impact my children and my marriage. And he's like, you are talking out of one side of your mouth, but you're living completely different from that. Like, when was the last time you thought of your husband? My husband's Michael. Like, when was the last time you just did something to totally pour into Michael? Or how has it affected Jack, our oldest, of how many hours you had to work and slog away to hit this financial metric that you hit? And it just was this, my first of many wake up calls of like, oh, I don't think I'm doing this right. And it was a humbling moment because I went into the weekend very excited and celebratory, and then I started reflecting and I was very surface level when we got there, like, "Oh, I did these things and this is great and I'm surrounded by all these amazing people." And then I'm starting to pulse check my value system and my life, and then I'm, like, looking at the people in the room, and I'm like, "I don't even wanna do life with these kind of people." Like, they weren't
Wow.
even my people. They weren't valuing their families. They just made a buttload of money and paid me a buttload of money to mentor them in business. I'm like, I don't think I'm doing this right. Like, everyone's telling me this is success, but it doesn't feel good to me. So that was kind of the first gut check. I've had many more since then. But with each one, I get a little better. But then I have another one that makes me realize, like, you still have a long way to go. Like, you still have a lot of growth to be had. You're not there yet. And I don't think we ever are there. To me, it's like a lot of fighting nature. You talk about the inner work. I imagine having done a lot of it myself and working with my clients, the inner work isn't a box you tick and you're like, "Oh, now I don't have this insecurity ever again." Or now I'm the leader I need to be and I'll never face any of the hardships or the struggles or the emotional side of things. It's that you're building a toolkit that you pull from more quickly to be more resilient so that when you do experience the nature of being human, you don't fall back into those old habits or those comforts that are taking you further and further from who you're actually called to be, which subsequently is, taking you further and further from what you're actually called to build in terms of business.
It was an amazing insight from your mentor because if he was a business mentor, you would expect that he would be looking at the numbers because it sounds like an enormous achievement um, for a young woman. And yet he had the insight. Well, maybe he knew you very, very well, and he's going, "This is going to feel like success, but it's not.
Mhm.
But it's not really. It's not really. It's not really success." Um,
Right.
Hmm. And it comes down to interestingly, again, I'm trying to think about 3, 4 months ago in a room again with a number of entrepreneurs, and we're sharing, each, what they're trying to do and build. And one of them is literally at the point, and I say at the point of maybe taking his company 100x. So we are talking
Wow.
phenomenal growth. Yeah, very, very, very impressive. Um, and I've no doubt he will do it because it's a very solid plan. It's very solid. all is good. So we get to the base of the why. I mean, I love the why question because it's where everything starts for me. If you don't know your why, which probably comes back to what your mentor was getting at, that you had lost your why, but but his why was he wanted freedom. So, and it's kind of, I mean, there was no comment or feedback from anyone in the room. There was no one saying to him, "Are you crazy?" or "You shouldn't be doing that,"
Right.
because that wasn't what it was about. It was the dropping for him of that moment, going, I'm looking to build this monster of a business to pursue freedom. Are they compatible?" And I suppose I'm not sure what conclusion he ultimately came to, but I think the awareness is massively important, because
Yeah.
I've no doubt you can build it and maintain freedom, just like you can build your business doing masterminds, a session of time for your family, but you need to be intentional and you need to be aware and you
Absolutely.
need to be aware of it. So after that, I mean, what was the shift? It's really interesting that you say you had the clients in the room and you're going, "I don't want to work with these people." So, and I suppose that maybe that's what I get looking on your website, is going, if I'm the person that goes, "I'm in, forget family, I just want the dollars," I'm going to go to your website and go, "I'm not, I'm not going to work with this lady."
Right.
And you go, "Well, thank you. That's exactly what I want."
Yes. I want the images of us as a family and living, in congruence with our values to scream at people so that the wrong
Yeah.
people who don't resonate with that immediately, remove
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
from the equation. Um, so I have a phrase that I've kind of grounded myself in and that I really lean in with my entrepreneurs, and it's how you build the thing is as important as the thing you build. Because so often we get into building the thing, whatever, the business, and we focus so much on that. And we look at it like, okay, when I build this thing, then I can have fill in the blank, more quality of life, more time with my kids, have the freedom. I guarantee that guy that you're talking about, like, he could have elements of freedom long before 100xing his business. And what is the cost, right? So you have to be able to look at, okay, to get to 10x, 50x, 100x, what's the cost? What's the journey there? Because that's really what matters. That's what life is.
Mm.
It's just the culmination of the moments in the day to day. Like right now, as I'm talking to you, my husband has the kids out in the pool. They're all playing. I just saw them out the window before we sat down together. And as soon as we're done, I'm going outside and I'm cannonballing into that pool with my kids. Now, do I have a laundry list of things in the business that I'm progressing? Absolutely. But my connection with my family and carving out those intentional times to have those moments is primary, because if I build the empire and it came at the expense of everything I said mattered most, it all crumbles and it doesn't matter. And the funny thing is, the level of entrepreneur that I work with often has built something really significant
Mm.
and has built something real. And the reason that they're bringing me in is because they realize the thing they built was not really true success. Like, it never really mattered
Mm.
because they were always focused on the thing they were building, but not how they were building it. So, for the first, here's another example of how I got it wrong for a while. So, for the first like 5 or 6 years in business, I was strictly business strategy. I love strategizing around business. I'm like, don't start talking about it with me because I'll go down every rabbit trail you can imagine to nerd out on the next marketing strategy or what I learned around AI or all this stuff. I just love it. I don't know why, but I've always really enjoyed that. So the first 5 or 6 years, people were hiring me because I got them really good results. Like we were 5xing, 10xing their revenue. They were getting massive ROI and working together. And I got to do what I really enjoyed, which was kind of just mastermind these ideas around their business that were going to help them thrive in terms of their business and their numbers. But maybe like 5 or 6 years in, I had this aha that every single, without exception, which is a rare thing you can say, like a stat of like 100% of the people that I was working with, at some point in the business growth, they hit some kind of cap, right? Like we weren't seeing the same level of trajectory and exponential growth that we'd been seeing when we first started working together. And 100% of the time, they were the bottleneck. It was no longer a strategic insight that they needed. It wasn't a system that they had to apply into their business. It wasn't a hire they had to make or a fire they had to make. It was their business had outgrown their leadership.
Mm.
And we had spent so much time focused on how do we scale the business and very little time on how do we scale the person leading the business, the engine of this thing, that it dawned on me, if this is happening with such frequency, the real results, like the results that cannot be forced or just come from hard work alone, are going to come from when I can unlock the leader, when I can scale the visionary or the founder, so that everything they do from that moment forward is no longer from a place of like manufacturing it or forcing it to happen, or from hard work alone, which we were all really accustomed to. Like none of us are shy. If you're a successful entrepreneur, hard work is your love language. Like you're not shying, you're not doing something because gee whiz, this is going to be hard. Most of the time that magnetizes you to it and everyone thinks you're nuts because you're like, people are like, you're going to do that? That's so hard. Yeah, that's the point. Give me the challenge. So that shift came, and what was so remarkable was all the things that we had been trying to calculate and create and build that was felt like heavy, like we were dragging it through the mud, but we were making it happen, started to become naturally accessible to these founders, like the type of growth that they were craving, but amplified because they were building from a place of overflow, not force. So this is so much of the work that you do, Paul. Like if you can identify who you need to become, like the inside work, not just what chess pieces do I have to move on a surface level. Now all of a sudden you access a level of inspiration and innovation and creativity and calling and honoring your values and building from what I call calling integrity. Like you were actually building something that you were put on this planet in this season of your life to do. That's pretty cool. Not a lot of people get to ever meet their purpose in that moment in time. That it all starts to happen naturally.
Mm.
And it was wild, like the doors that started opening for them, the opportunities they were getting. We had built like a whole pitch deck and a whole pitch plan to try and get them on these stages. Now those stages and even bigger stages were calling them. It was like
Mm.
this unbelievable momentum that built. So much of my business has shifted over the years. Now founders are bringing me in because they're like, "Oh, she's the girl that's going to help me do the impossible because she's going to help me unlock me."
Mm.
Now, we still do a lot of business strategy because I can't help myself, but
Mm.
it's secondary to, yeah, this block you're facing, this struggle, you're not going to just go grasp at another strategy because it's more comfortable for you. Like, let's figure out what's really tripping you out. So that was a scary shift for me because in my mind I always told myself, well, people only pay for like the business strategy. You know what I mean? Like people aren't looking for someone to help them scale themselves. They're looking for what's the quick fix? What's the thing that I can implement that's going to make me more money? Well, come to find out there are a lot of hungry entrepreneurs out there who are desperate for this kind of work, and it's really the leadership work. And you used the word awareness earlier. That's like job one. So many of us are doing things. I know I'm speaking from my own experience for myself. We're doing things because we don't have the level of awareness to see our blind spots or to see the patterns we're just totally subconsciously repeating that are hurting us or taking us off the path to where we're really called to go.